And welcome back to the Wellness Paradox podcast. I'm so grateful that you can join us on this journey towards greater human flourishing. As always, I'm your host, Michael Stack, an exercise physiologist by training and a health entrepreneur and a health educator by trade. And I'm fascinated by a phenomena I call the wellness paradox. This paradox, as I view it, is the trust, interaction, and communication gap that exists between fitness professionals and our medical community. This podcast is all about closing off that gap by disseminating the latest, most evidence-based, and most engaging information in the health sciences. And to do that in episode 89, I'm truly honored to bring to you, our audience, Dr. Kenneth Cooper. Now, if Dr. Cooper's name sounds familiar to you, you may have heard reference to him from the Cooper Aerobics Institute in Dallas, Texas, and all the many publications that he's written over the years. Dr. Cooper is truly a pioneer in the field of medicine, exercises medicine, and if there's anyone that has done anything to solve the paradox throughout the decades, it is Dr. Cooper. This conversation was an absolute career highlight for my part, just to sit there and listen to Dr. Cooper's story, what he's built at the Cooper Aerobics Center in Dallas, Texas, and the many things he's done to advance our profession. You're going to find I didn't ask a lot of questions in this conversation. And when you have an icon like Dr. Cooper, in a lot of cases, you just sit back and listen. And that's what I'd invite all of you to do with this amazing conversation. Any information we'd like to share with you from today's episodes can be found on the show notes page by going to wellnessparadoxpod.com/episode 89. Please enjoy this conversation with the legendary Dr. Kenneth Cooper. Today, it is my honor to introduce our guest, Dr. Kenneth Cooper. Dr. Cooper, thank you so much for joining us.
Mike, it's a pleasure to meet you and to participate in the podcast.
This is such an honor for me, given your stature in our field, and we're going to get into your story during this conversation, but I kind of want to start with, to the extent you can, a brief history of you and who you are to give our guests some context, or our audience some context for this discussion.
Born and raised in Oklahoma City, born March the 4th, 1931, means I'm 91, almost 92 years of age. During my formative years, I had responsibilities working on the farm, quote unquote, everything from milking a cow in the morning and evening, from the 6th to the 12th grade, having to work to the garden and the chicken coop and all that kind of stuff. So I learned a work ethic, because my father, a practicing dentist, was raised on a farm during his youth, and he thought that was experience I should have. But then during those early years, I did concentrate on my grades. I was salutatory to my graduating class, a high school class. But then also, I also got involved in athletics. That began when I was a ninth grader. In fact, the principal, we didn't have a track coach at Putnam City, that's a suburb of Oklahoma City, have a track coach, but the principal of the junior high school saw me running, going from school over to the cafeteria, and I was out running everybody. It's the ninth grade. He said, "You ought to go up for track." I hadn't talked about running for track. I wanted to play football and basketball and all that, but I ran so fast. He got me at a meeting. I was in the ninth grade. It was in El Reno, Oklahoma. It's a suburb not too far from Oklahoma City. It was just a field with a laid off a quarter mile track. And I ran the half mile in 2 minutes and 15 seconds. That's the first time I ran it, which was pretty good. So that began my athletic career, which resulted, I was a senior in high school, that I did winning the state championship on the mile run, 4 minutes and 31 seconds. I lacked 1 second in breaking the record. That was back in 1949. That got me into a scholarship, University of Oklahoma. And for 3 years in pre-med there, I did run track across country and did well in that. But then when I got into medical school, then I didn't have the time to exercise. And that's a characteristic of many people, because the most common manifestation of obesity is stress. Well, it was stressful during the 4 years in medical school, an internship, getting about 4 or 5 hours of sleep a night, trying to make sure you got your grazing, all that kind of stuff. And so I did gain from 168 up to 204 pounds. But that deconditioned state, after I finished my medical school internship and went into the military for a couple of years, I had to pay that back for the military. I didn't try to get started back into running again. But then age 29, I've been totally inactive for a period of 6 years. Then I tried to water ski for the first time that I'd done since my youth. I've been a good water skier to my youth. I was skiing up like slow-mo on a slalom course, and halfway through, I got hit with chest pain and a very rapid heart. I thought I was having a heart attack. Give me off the side. Give me off the side. Got there at the hospital in Durant, Oklahoma. And by the time I got there, the heart rate returned to normal. And a very significant diagnostic workup said, nothing wrong with you, doc. You're just out of shape. Now, that was at 29 years of age, outstanding athlete, high school and college. In just a few years, I was terribly out of shape. And majority of my medical school class experienced the whole thing. So now the 106 people in my medical class, there's only 15 of us left. So that epiphany changed my life because I was pre-diabetic, I was hypertense. And so I lost that weight within 6 months from my first marathon a year later. And that changed my life and changed my career. I hadn't planned on being a specialist in preventive medicine. In medical school, we were taught that preventive medicine is the Cinderella of the medical, especially because there's no profit in health. When I established my practice here 52 years ago, they said there's no way you can take care of healthy people and make ends meet, because people see their physicians only when they're sick, not when they're well. Look what's happened. We have 150,000 patients in our database, come from all over the world, 74% return patients. We now have the largest data repository, the Cooper Center Longitudinal Study of any place in the world, which have 150,000 patients, which we've done over 300,000 maximum performance treadmill stress tests. And one thing, I came to Dallas 52 years ago, they wanted to board me out of the Board of Censors, wanted to board me out of the Medical Society because I was doing something as dangerous as treadmill stress testing. Well, I'd done that in the Air Force. I worked with NASA for 2 years, developing exercise programs for the astronauts while in space. Worked with my colleague Bill Thornton. I got transferred from the Army to the Air Force in 1960, become a sinus astronaut. I thought going to the space program. I worked with them for 2 years, developed the modern treadmill testing technique that's now being used everywhere. We developed that, Bill Thornton and I did. And then all of a sudden it became a major tool in the diagnosis of early heart disease. Because we've done now over 300,000 treadmill stress tests, and 16.1% are abnormal equivocal. Only 11% knew they had a problem. Only 5% knew they had a problem. So 11% of 150,000 patients, we've had coronary heart disease, in some cases very serious, by going through the clinic here. So that's just changed the whole concept of preventive medicine away from too much care too late to trying to prevent disease. And one thing that we do at the clinic, we try to prevent Alzheimer's dementia. Undeniable data, we can show now you can reduce Alzheimer's dementia. A 25-year study on people 50 years of age and 75 years of age, you can prevent Alzheimer's dementia by 36%. We published back in 2013. And the only variable we looked at in these 20,000 people for the 25 years was their time on the treadmill. We didn't look at their cholesterol levels, their blood pressure, their diabetes. Looked at one variable showing the value of exercise has to be the foundation of good preventive medicine program. Exercise is not a panacea, but it's the foundation of good program. So that changed all this. That's changed the world now. But what the research has been doing here over the last 52 years. So along the way, though, there's been some obstacles. I had to go bankruptcy, 88 to 91, couldn't pay the money on my loan and all that kind of stuff. We got through that. We burned the mortgage back in 1991. After you went bankrupt in 88 to 91, by 2001, we burned the mortgage. And then we had all these obstacles along the way. And one of the obstacles in my early years was my father. He was a practicing dentist in Oklahoma City. He never would embrace my concept of exercise. That was back in the 40s when it was prominent theory among medical professions in general. You exercise too much, get an athletic heart. That heart gets larger, because back in those days, we look at a chest X-ray on an athlete, it was slightly enlarged. Well, they theorized that's because it's muscular and thick. In reality, it wasn't muscular and thick. We didn't find out echocardiograms later. It's because that heart dilates in the aerobic conditioning program. So it increases the ejection fraction, the amount of blood you can pump out of the heart. And that's the reason the resting heart rate drops in a person who's conditioned. My resting heart rate runs 48 to 50, 55 beats per minute. It says all these years I've been exercising. We find the average American male's resting heart is 72, average American female about 78. But we can find our conditioning program from 72 down to the 55 to the 60. That's the physiological response. That athletic heart is the good heart, the normal heart. But my father never would embrace that concept. He thought I was killing myself. In fact, I remember when we were in church and there was a young man that was an usher passing the plate, and he passed out. He fainted. And he had been known for running cross country. And my dad says, that's an example of what's going to happen to you. Now you're going to faint, perhaps die, but it's going to shorten your lifespan. And so I had to fight him the whole way. In all the years I played basketball, and all the years I ran track at the University of Oklahoma and in high school, he never saw me compete. He didn't prevent me from competing, but he rebelled in his silent way. He didn't like what I was doing. I've outlived him now by 15 years, which is such a tragedy. Because I wish I'd have known that from my father. Well, if I'd known then what I know now, from all these years of research and all, that your life is your responsibility. And no drug can replicate the benefits of active lifestyle. We know that now. And our people are living in a study. We followed people for 25 years, for 45 years. And then we found out that our people are squaring off the curve. They've been long, healthy life before and dying suddenly, with an average age of 90.2 years for our women and 87.5 years for our men. I'm already 90, going on 92 here, March the 4th. And so we found you can prolong life. You can reduce deaths from all causes. In the most famous article we published November the 3rd, 1989, in the Journal of the American Medical Association. And it was entitled Physical Fitness All-Cause Mortality. We followed 13,600 people for a period of 8 years. And we looked at their levels of fitness. Very poor, poor, fair, good exercise, period. And we pointed out in their article, if people move up one block on the fitness scale from very poor to poor, they get a 6-year increase in longevity and a 55% reduction in deaths from heart attacks. And they also, deaths from all causes, not just heart attacks. That then moves to the top level of fitness, only a 9-year increase in longevity and 65%. The best return on your physical investment is just avoiding activity. Move from category 1 to category 2. So we say now, I want you to get collectively 30 minutes of exercise, collective or sustained, most days a week. It's about 150 minutes per week. And that's exactly what's recommended by the American College of Sports Medicine. So all this has been a process of developing over the years, but now the results are just too impressive to ignore it. Last year, we celebrated the 50th anniversary, the 51st anniversary of the fitness center. And we have a legacy dinner, and they put out an article that said exercise prescriptions that has changed the world. And I believe that's true. I get invited to speak all over the world now. And I just got to, you don't even know about this, but I just had an invitation to speak in China. And this is in April again. Now, I've been in China many times, 13 times since 1980. We have a center in Nanjing, China called Cooper Health and Wellness Center. It's kind of held back right now because of the COVID epidemic over there. But they love my work in China. Why did I go to China? Because they listen to me. I've just been speaking against a blank wall for so many people, particularly the medical professions. They've never accepted the concept of preventive medicine. Because you might ask about one of your questions is why don't physicians practice preventive medicine? Number one, they know anything about it. I wasn't taught in preventive medicine school. Anything that I learned about nutrition and exercise physiology, I learned at the 2 years I spent at Harvard School of Public Health, because that is not taught in the curriculum of medical schools. And so that's something that we've had to overcome too, is to try to get this message out to physicians that you can't do that because nothing about it, people have to learn something about it. And number two, they tell me, I don't have time to do it, I can't get paid for it. That's why physicians are not embracing the concept of preventive medicine, because we can't, the insurance companies to pay for this. And now people come to this clinic, they pay out of their pocket. We don't even take Medicare or insurance because they don't get covered for that. Some people will apply for it and get some insurance now. We're beginning to see that turnaround. But we've had these obstructions as far as the medical place. That's the one, there's a paradox you talk about, that we're not getting the message from the physical education community to the medical profession because of a lack of knowledge. Now, we hope in the process of these documentaries I'm making, too, in addition to the autobiography of my life, that the first one's going to physician and get your head out of the sand, because you've been concentrating for too long with too much care too late. We spend way too much for a healthcare dollar on desperate measures that prolongs death, not life, a miserable few days. We spend twice as money, over $3 trillion per year on healthcare, and 43rd in longevity. There's a big disconnect there. Something we can change that, and we've proven that with our research. So we got to get this message to physician. And also the thing we're concentrating on, very concentrated on our research now, is the problem with chronic inflammation, because chronic inflammation isn't being measured. Now, we know physicians are concentrating just on acute care, acute chronic, but they don't pay attention to the chronic inflammation, which is a major cause of about 15 different diseases, not the least of which is Alzheimer's dementia. And one of the reasons of chronic inflammation, obesity, and inactivity. That's the top of the list. The reason we theorize that those people that we fought for 25 years, they're in the top level of fitness, top 20 percentile versus 20 percentile, all healthy at age 50. And then 25 years later, 36 reduction in Alzheimer's dementia compared to the bottom category. These people are lean and trim during that period of time and active. And these people at the bottom are overweight and inactive. And that's a major variables there. As far as activity and weight control is a part of getting Cooperized, as we call it. Now, getting Cooperized is recommended by 7 different things that we recommend. Number 1 on that list is get your body weight, get your body mass index. You do that by going to the computer, putting your height and weight, they'll tell you what's your body mass index. 18 to 25 is normal. 25 to 30 is overweight. 30 to 35 is obese. Above 35 is morbidly obese. And we try to get people down to 18 to 25, number 1. Number, try to get them exercising 30 minutes, collective or sustained most days a week, 150 minutes. And the number 3, we encourage them to get a proper diet. And my rule for that is 5 is fine, 9 is a vine. Number of servings of fruits and vegetables should be consuming daily. Average American adult, 3.1. Average American teenager, 1.6. A major deficiency there. So along with that, we recommend vitamin supplementation. I take a lot of vitamins every day, particularly omega-3 and vitamin D. I take these in order to help me have some protect Alzheimer's dementia. I have a whole long list of presentations on that, how you can reduce the deaths and the hospitalizations from omega-3, from COVID-3, just by taking omega-3 and decreasing the chronic inflammation that's a factor in that. And that message is now beginning to go around the world, particularly people of color. Why do you think people of color have the 5-time risk of being hospitalized and 2-fold risk of death? Because they can't manufacture vitamin D through the skin. Because when you get that sympathetic storm, when the COVID infection hits you, the body responds by this storm and is destroyed. And that virus that comes in goes in, is modified to extent, starts damaging the lung, and you die of pneumonia. But we can block that if we use large doses of vitamin D. I take 7,000 units a day. A vitamin level around 60 to 65 is my level of vitamin D. The average American is 30. Average American, a person who is an Afro-American or a Latino, is now in the single digit low teens. If I get that message across the world, then we can get the people of color to see they won't see the dramatic difference in what's happening to people as far as the COVID deaths and hospitalizations compared to people of lighter skin. Which is the same as we've been promoting now for a lot of years, been controversial all these years, but now it's coming around. Why? I think because of divine intervention in my life.
So you mentioned, Dr. Cooper, you mentioned that the medical community doesn't seem to embrace this, broadly speaking. What can fitness professionals do to maybe get the medical community to more broadly embrace the principles that you're talking about?
First things I've already told you is we're preparing this documentary, about a 20-minute documentary, going to physicians to embrace the concept of preventive medicine and the importance of chronic inflammation. Number 2 is to get preventive medicine in the curriculum in medical school. Preventive medical in medical schools is nothing but give you immunizations. And the number 3 is to prepare the whole concept of this to broad people go around the world. Those are the documentaries I'll be working on. And so the first one is going to physicians, the second one to medical schools, and the third one is going to UNESCO. I spoke for the United Nations back in 2019. They asked me to speak back in New York. And I thought my presentation was his cheap and effective to prevent disease and to find a cure. We have data to show that now. And we've been able to show in a longitudinal study that people who are in great shape from 50 to 75 years of age, their cost of health care from 65 to 75 years was 40% less in the top category than the bottom category because they were Cooperized. And so we can show that. But we got to get that message across to the people of the world that no drug, as I've said, can replicate the benefits of active lifestyle, and your health is your responsibility. It's not the responsibility of the government, not the responsibility of your insurance company or your physician. It's what you do for yourself determines how long you live and how well you live. And I'm trying to be an example of that now at close to 92 years of age. So I've tried to practice these concepts to impress it upon my patients. If I get other physicians to do the same thing, we could see a revolution of preventive medicine and medical profession, and we could discontinue with that paradox we're seeing between the physical education community and the medical profession.
Yeah, absolutely. Talk to us a little bit about the Cooper Aerobic Center and all the many things you do, because as we talked about before we got on, there's many different elements under the umbrella of the Cooper Aerobic Center. So touch a little bit on that.
Well, we started with the 2 offices and 2 employees about 5 miles from down the shopping center, but now we have a 30-acre estate. And that's an answered prayer too, I can assure you. One way to acquire this property was I was asked to speak at the Layman's Leadership Institute of the Colorado Springs. That's a Howard Bush organization. And I was speaking to a group of people talking about my faith, my beliefs, and what had happened developing the aerobic center. And there was a woman that was sitting in the audience there. Her name was Miss Clarice Nichols. And she was so impressed that when I've tried to get this property here back in 1960, before we moved here in 1970, and I sold this beautiful property, 30 acres, had 2 lakes in front and all that. This is an ideal place for me. Well, my real estate agent tried 3 times to get her to sell this property to me, at least at piecemeal. I was going to buy 6 acres in first and finally get the whole 22 acres and finally the 30 acres. But then the third time I said, try them again. She tried 3 times. I said, try one more time to see if she can still sell this property to me. And so it finally hit her. She said, just a minute, is this the man who wrote the book on exercise? I said, yes. Is he the one who spoke at the Leadership Institute in Colorado Springs, Hardy Springs? I don't know him. I'll ask him. And I said, yes, but my wife and I spoke there. She was sitting in the audience and decided if she ever could do anything to help me, she would do it. And so she did it. Do you think that was a divine intervention in my life? I'll say one many examples of divine intervention in my life. So we started that small office, and then we moved out here and 6.8 acres and finally 30 acres under the umbrella of the aerobic center, which consists, number 1, the Cooper Clinic. I already talked about that. Number 2, one of the most fantastic fitness centers in the country. We have a 1-mile outdoor walking track. It's tartan surface and likes to be used at night. We have 2 swimming pools, indoor jogging track, fantastic facility. And we have about 3,000 members at our fitness center. We, on a busy day, we'll have 1,000 people work out here at the aerobic center. Our big problem now is parking here with our 600 employees that people work out at this center. But then we have our own hotel. It's the Cooper Hotel. And so we provide services here for a lot of the corporate executives, and 45% of our patients are corporate sponsored. They like what we do because our people can fly in the night before, stay at the hotel, and they prep that night. And we start seeing at 7 o'clock in the morning. They're through by 3 o'clock in the afternoon. Mm-hmm. And we're ranked number 2 in America as far as these corporate examinations are concerned. Number 1 is the Mayo Clinic. And number 1, the Cleveland Clinic. And then we do more examinations than they do. It takes 2 days to go through the exam. We take only 1 day. Number 2 is us. Number 3 is Duke Medical School. Number 4 is Johns Hopkins Medical School. Number 5 is the Mayo Clinic. We've had that for the last 10 years. And so we have embraced the concept of getting us something that is economical. It is feasible to do that. Speaking of economical, it's a basic exam. It's not covered by insurance. But I tell the people that you don't have to go this expensive exam to get this process started. Just do some basic things that are very expensive. Number 1, get your height and weight, get your body mass index. Overweight, get it back to normal. And number 2 is get involved in exercise and 30 minutes twice a week. But also get your but as far as your examination is concerned, get your blood pressure taken. That's very inexpensive. It should be less than 120 over 90, but certainly less than 120 over 80, but certainly less than 140 over 90. And then get some blood studies and check your lipid profile, your cholesterol, triglycerides, and check for diabetes. That's a very inexpensive thing, and that's the things that's killing us in America today. So if you want to have a suppressed version of what we're doing here, do what I said, very inexpensive. Anybody, any physician can do that. If I can impress that in this documentary, that physicians, you can't do the type of examination we do. It's very expensive. It's very, very inclusive. Best examination in the world, really. But you can do this in a short period of time and still get the benefits of preventive medicine for your patient. But again, you got to set the example for this. You're not going to be successful as a practical physician if you're overweight, trying to tell your patient to lose weight. If you're a cigarette smoker, trying to get smoking. If you're excessive use of alcohol, you have to do that. You can't do that because that's one of the things we have in getting Cooperage. You can't smoke. You got to limit your alcohol. No more than a drink a week. If you drink, I don't drink at all. You have to have stress management. You have these examinations. We think everyone should have a good basic examination. The type provided by physicians I mentioned, the type we do here at age 35. Get a baseline there. Because we know that people 35 years start developing some coronary arteriovascular disease. We'll look at the coronary calcification score. But age 40, every year at 18 months. After 50, once a year. And we've proven that by the people that we talked to, we followed for 35 years, they're increasing their lifespan 10 years on the national average. And by we just read this last week, the life expectancy just dropped the first time now. It's dropped a year from 77 to 76. They say it's called the COVID. But it's because a lot of things too. But COVID is a major reason there. But again, if you just realize that if you follow these recommendations, have quality life for a long period of time, and then die suddenly, look what happened to all these various things. Overall, when I've been speaking about exercise for 50 years or so, and I'm speaking to younger groups, they don't have any interest in this because you talk about smoking. I'm not going to have lung cancer or heart attack from smoking. You talk about losing, well, I'm not worried about. I'm going to do what I want now because I'm a young person. Don't you realize that you're beginning now to establish patterns that may kill you at an early age? But keep this too. When I ask people, how long you been exercise for 5 years or longer, what's the reason you primarily exercise? Is because you're going to live longer, or protect yourself from all these diseases, or because it makes you feel better? How many people think it makes you feel better? 90% of the hands go up. Because we've proven our research, people that are physically fit are less depressed. They're less hypochondriac, improved self-image, much more positive attitude towards life. So I can tell people that, I want to embrace that concept because that'll make me feel good. You won't believe the numbers of letters I've received from people. Dr. Cooper, I wanted to thank you for getting me involved in your rugby program because it made me feel so much better. I had people say, I wish I'd known that years ago. I didn't realize I was losing all these times of feeling good until I changed my lifestyle. And it's never too late either. We've had people starting these conditioning programs 65 and 70 years of age and see they can improve the quality and quantity of their life. I had one of my long-term favorite men who read my book in 1968 and started running. His name was Orville Rogers. And he became a patient, and he was in such outstanding condition at age 90 years of age. I said, why don't you start competing in some of these senior athletic events? He started doing that. And by 101 years of age, he had held 16 world records running events from 60 meters, 3,000 meters. Finally, he died at 101 years of age. But he talked about scurrying off the curb. He did it. If I could go that way, praise the Lord. I'd take that tomorrow.
Wow. Dr. Cooper, you've accomplished so much in your career. And I'm curious, in this last phase of your career, what you are most excited about as you sit here right now for the next 2, 3, 10 years, however long you're doing what you're doing for. What are you most excited about?
Well, I think I'm most excited about the autobiography of my life we're working on right now in these 3 documentaries together, because I think that that's going to be the key to getting people of the world embracing the concept. My books are in 34 languages. So I've spoken in 52 countries around the world. So we've had international acceptance. The work, a lot of people are coming to the Cooper Clinic from other countries. So we have that acceptance already. But still, the masses and the physicians in general aren't accepting this. But if people realize they have a need, you provide a service, get the results they want, they'll make it successful in any field. That's called health physician. So if you work with the physicians, work with the patients, get them to lose weight, get them to be Cooperized, all these examinations, and see the response of the patient, they're going to be more likely to come back. I know our people coming back regularly. So I mentioned 74% of return patients, because I can't stand to come back and not be in shape, because I put them on the treadmill. And they all want to reach that good category of fitness and get that longevity I keep talking about. So there's a goal there. I know people can reach, myself included, that we can reduce the cost there, reduce decimal costs by what you do for yourself. I want to make that message very clear. It's what you do from now on going to determine how well and how long you live. And you can do that if you follow some basic tips that aren't that hard. But it takes discipline. That's the thing we don't have in America today. That's where the fattest country in the world. We have 70% of our adults overweight or obese. That's above 25 on the BMI scale, from 18 to 20, above 25 on the BMI scale. And that's pathetic, because that's obesity is a disease by itself. You can't be healthy and be obese. And I just see a lot of people are embracing the concepts all the way to extremes of getting some type of bariatric surgery to lose weight. And we see that people have bariatric surgery to lose weight, and their diabetes disappears, the blood pressure goes down and all that. But you can do it with your self-discipline too. I talk about in my presentations, again, with my strong religious conviction, I use Bible verses all the time. And people have asked me, do you have a single word you attribute to success to, physically, spiritually, whatever it may be? And I said discipline. After many years, I said discipline. In Proverbs 13:8, I read this, the translation of that verse once, it says, shame and poverty come to those who are not disciplined. And I think that's true. So you get to have some discipline in your life, whether it's your activities, your eating, it's your health habits, whatever it may be, your work, all this combination. I've tried to combine all this together. I start my day with prayer and Bible study. I prepare less, I go as I did this morning. And then after that, I finish the day by working out. I go up to the center to work out after 8, 10, and 12-hour day, and go over there and work on the treadmill on the bicycle before I go home. I work on the stationary bicycle because I broke my leg snow skiing back in 2004 after 38 years and running 38,000 miles over 40 years. I had to stop running. I ran several marathons, ultra marathons, and all that. It really hard me to do that. But they were telling me that after I had two surgeries on my tibial plateau fracture of my right knee from my skiing accident, that you can't run anymore. But I transitioned to cycling. And then I do that to stationary cycling for 30 minutes. That's where I get my aerobic capacity. And so, but I found too that I can handle my knee problem. I haven't had a total replacement surgery yet. I may, after all these years, 18 years or 19 years now since I had that injury, and I still work out every day. But I finish it with a combination of exercise. It's not just aerobic activity. I go through about 10 minutes of weight training at the end of circuit weight training program. In the early years, I thought that all you needed was aerobic conditioning. I don't care how you did anything else because you make aerobically fit, you're going to live long. But I realized that if you're aerobically fit, but still they could pick up aggressive groceries without pulling their back out. But you have to incorporate some weight training as you get older, because at 50 years of age, because of sarcopenia, you start losing muscle mass unless you do something to combat that. And so I tell my patients now, we have it at 30 years of age, 80% aerobic and 20% conditioning. You'll get to my age, it should be 65 aerobic and 55% aerobic weight conditioning. So you have to gradually build up as you get older to be totally physically fit, not just aerobic fit. If you really enjoy a healthy life to the fullest. All these things I've learned over the years. People have said you keep, in the 19 books I've published, you keep changing books to make money. That makes me sick when I hear that. I changed my books based upon undeniable research. A lot of this conducted outside of our clinic, not at our clinic, but we set the way with our research publications. We're all over the world now with our publications. I get all these invitations, I said, to go to national meetings. But again, they want to know what we're teaching and preaching here. So if I can get that message across to physicians, to the people, I think that the physicians, the patients are going to be demanding this from physicians. That's going to be the big move. And get the communities working to get exercise physiologists, physical education people combining and give lectures that have fed medical communities or medical organizations ask people from the physical education field to give them a lecture on preventive medicine. It's something about nutrition, something about exercise physiology. I worked in my second year at Harvard School of Public Health working on doctor of exercise physiology. The first year was a bachelor's in public health. If I didn't have that education, I'll be able to practice for any medicine I'm practicing now. So I've got that message across. So I think there's an opportunity there in the future. And in my final years, I hope to be able to do that.
Yes, absolutely. You were such an amazing advocate for exercise as medicine. The last question I'd like to end with for you, because you've covered so much, I would love you to speak to the fitness professionals that listen to this podcast, the personal trainers, the fitness coaches, and from your perspective, what can they do to make this vision that you have of making exercise a part of medicine? What can they do as fitness professionals to make that a reality?
I think that physical professionals have become more involved in some medical training, where education for exercise physiology, and where that means, I don't know if some of them are nutrition, they may not have that. And some of the things we're teaching and preaching, getting Cooperized, to get them involved, get the professionals that feel. We have over 20 full-time professional trainers here, and they're doing extremely well because they've embraced the concept that exercise is medicine. And so the two do go together. Now, that's the coin that we use. Dr. Ted Mitchell is now the chancellor of Texas Tech, who worked for me for 20 years, the CEO of our clinic here. He used that in the presentation for our College of Sports Medicine. Aerobics, that exercise is medicine. Now that has been the byword for the American College of Sports Medicine, exercise is medicine. So get that together. Get the physical education people involved in more medical training, and get the medical doctors more involved in exercise training. We got to get that paradox out of the way. And we can do that because I know we're getting more and more physicians want to get involved in the work we're doing here. That's why I'm getting all these invitations to speak. But I want to do that, I've mentioned several times, with the subcommittees we're working on. So I think that could be a giant step in the proper direction. But it may be mandated by the people, not led by the physician. Because, people don't change our problem with with problems. What the government demands we do is what we decide to do for ourselves. The government's not going to do it. And so we have to do this ourselves. But I found that the patients come back, as I said, because it's that we come back for a very complex examination, because we've proven over the years we can prevent Alzheimer's dementia, two things like that. If we can't prevent Alzheimer's and cancer, but for Alzheimer's and cancer, we can reduce the likelihood of it by having this very complex examination. But it has to be an educational motivation experience. We only see 4 patients a day, because our physicians spend an hour and a half with these patients, because we want to educate and motivate our patients. That's why they come back, get up-to-date information when we're talking, and give them recommendations that are safe, effective, and realistic. Don't tell them things that are totally unrealistic. They'll discourage them, never come back, but then get them back. That's the 4-step improvement. That's a 4-step program that we use to try to get our patients involved in our programs. And that's why 74% of return patients. So to get that message across to the physical education community, get that medication, that presentation that I've done into the field of physical education. Maybe you'll find more physician medical societies want some of the people from the physical education society, or physical exercise physiology society, to lecture to their donors. I've done that to medical groups already. Of course, I'm a physician, I can identify with it, but have an outsider. But one thing I'm telling you, physical education people, the best thing to prevent progression of Parkinsonism is exercise. Do you know that? That's the only thing that has really been proven. That exercise can slow down the progression of Alzheimer's. That's why we have a program here at our Center for Alzheimer's Patients. It's a dance patient, and we've seen that improvement. So you people out there in physical education ought to start branching out to other things. On the top of that list may be special programs for people with Alzheimer's.
Mm-hmm.
We're working at the Atlantic Club down in New Jersey. Just recently, we have a program down there with our concepts program and all. And I was pleased to see they have a very dynamic program for Alzheimer's, for Parkinson's patients, because they've shown the same thing that we're seeing. You can slow down and even reverse some of those changes that people get when they get the all you get from Parkinson's disease. They ought to know that. And so some of these things, and I said the possibility of reducing Alzheimer's dementia by just controlling weight and exercising, why don't they know that in the physical education field? And so go on your own there and start doing some studies among the members of your club and document the people that are following your programs. Do they get chronic diseases? Are they seeing the same thing we're seeing? They're prolonging lives, reducing death from all causes. So you might want to get some research involved in some of these physical education programs, health clubs around the country, around the world. So I think there's a bridge we're beginning to back there. For years, I've been trying to bridge the gap between faddism and scientific legitimacy using exercise and practice of medicine. But now the results are too impressive to be ignored.
Absolutely. Dr. Cooper, this has been an honor and a pleasure. Thank you for everything you've done for our field over the years, and thank you so much for being a guest on the podcast.
Well, it's been my pleasure, and I wish you great program with your success, and hopefully one of these days gets you down here to the center to see our place.
I would absolutely love it.
If people want to get more information about the center, go to cooperaerobics.com. You'll also see some early videos we have there now. One was just released this week, in which kind of reviews about a 30-minute presentation that we just talked about. CooperAerobics.com is the way that people can get directly associated with what we're doing here at the clinic and make appointments at the clinic if they want.
Absolutely. And we will link up to that on the show notes page. As I said, it has been an absolute honor and a pleasure to have this conversation. Thank you so much.
My pleasure.
Well, I hope you enjoyed that conversation with Dr. Cooper as much as I did. If you found it insightful and informative, please share with your friends and colleagues. Those shares make a huge difference for us. Any information we'd like to share with you from today's episode can be found in the show notes page by going to wellnessparadoxpod.com/episode 89. Please be on the lookout for our next episode when it drops 2 weeks from today. And don't forget to subscribe on your favorite podcast platform. Until we chat again next week, please be well.